All right, so we finished up chapter 43 last time. We had the second journey, this time with Benjamin, of Joseph's brothers. Journey to Egypt because they had run out of grain. And we remember how Reuben and Judah both put themselves up as surety for Benjamin's life. The very two who before were trying to save Joseph's life when they sold him into slavery. Pardon me. And so now Benjamin is there, and they're about to return home with their second load of grain. And what Joseph is now going to do is to see what they would do if, once again, their lives were at risk. And he arranges it, as we will see, in such a way that he puts the blame on Benjamin, even though he was innocent. And whereas before, when he put the money in their sacks, he didn't go chase them down, remember, and say, "You stole the money." He let them bring the money back to see if they would actually be righteous enough to return the money that was not theirs by right. But here, something different happens. So he does the same thing with the money, but he does more. He commanded the steward of his house, "Fill the men's sacks with food as much as they can carry, and put each man's money in the mouth of his sack, and put my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest with his money for the grain." And he did as Joseph told them. And as soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away with their donkeys. They'd gone only a short distance from the city. Now Joseph said to his steward, "Up, follow after the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, 'Why have you repaid evil for good? Is it not from this that my Lord drinks, and by this that he practices divination? You have done evil in doing this.'" So this time, before they even know what's happening, because they haven't opened the sacks, they haven't found the cup, they haven't found the money, the men of Joseph overtook his brothers, and he spoke to them these words. He said they repeat what Joseph just here said to tell them. So his brothers answer, "Why does my Lord speak such words as these? Far be it from your servants to do such a thing. Behold, the money that we found in the mouths of our sacks we brought back to you from the land of Canaan. How then could we steal silver or gold from your Lord's house? Whichever of your servant is found with it shall die, and we also will be my Lord's servants." So they know they didn't do this thing. They're convinced. He said, "Let it be as you say. He who is found with it shall be my servant, and the rest of you shall be innocent." Then each man quickly lowered his sack to the ground, and each man opened his sack, and he searched, beginning with the eldest and ending with the youngest. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. So they had just unwittingly before condemned Benjamin to death, right? They said, "Let the man who has the cup be slain, and then we'll all be your slaves if any of this is true." And of course they answered, "No, you guys can all go free. I'm just going to take a slave, the guy who has the cup." So kind of repeating what happened with Joseph, they said, "Okay, he's going to take Benjamin as a slave now, just like they sold their brother Joseph into slavery. Will they allow it?" Then they tore their clothes, and every man loaded his donkey, and they returned to the city. When Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, he was still there, and they fell before him to the ground. Joseph said to them, "What deed is this that you have done? Did you not know that a man like me can indeed practice divination?" So he's using, he's speaking about divination because this is, of course, what the Egyptians practiced. And so he's playing the role of an Egyptian all this time. They have no idea he's a Hebrew. They have no idea he's their brother.
And what is divination?
So divination from a cup means, there's lots of different ways of divination, but basically it's you're using some physical thing to try to tell fortunes. And so, you know, people do it all. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways, like, you know, people read tea. You ever heard of reading tea leaves? You know, where they look at the pattern of tea leaves in a cup, or, you know, in this case, the reflection of the wine in the silver cup, or you name it. It's fortune telling. All right. And of course, Joseph didn't practice divination, but he's playing the role of an Egyptian. And Judah said, "What shall we say to my lord? What shall we speak, or how can we clear ourselves? God has found out the guilt of your servants." What guilt is Judah speaking about? The guilt of selling Joseph into slavery. Remember, they said this the first time when they found the money, that this is all coming upon us because of what we did to Joseph. And they saw it as a judgment from God himself. "Behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and he also, in whose hand the cup has been found." But he said, "Far be it from me that I should do so. Only the man in whose hand the cup was found shall be my servant. But as for you, go in peace to your father." Giving them every opportunity to abandon their brother. Then Judah went up to him and said, "O my lord, please let your servant speak a word in my lord's ears, and let not your anger burn against your servant, for you are like Pharaoh himself." My lord asked his servants, saying, "Have you a father or a brother?" And we said to my lord, "We have a father, an old man, and a younger brother, the child of his old age. His brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother's children, and my father loves him." Then you said to your servants, "Bring him down to me, that I may set my eyes on him." And we said to my lord, "The boy cannot leave his father, for if he should leave his father would die." Then you said to your servants, "Unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you shall not see my face again." When we went back to your servant, my father, we told him the words of my lord. And when our father said, "Go again, buy us a little food," we said, "We cannot go down. If our youngest brother goes with us, then we will go down. For we cannot see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us." Then your servant my father said to us, "You know that my wife bore me 2 sons. One left me, and I said, 'Surely he has been torn to pieces, and I have never seen him since.' If you take this one also from me, and harm happens to him, you shall bring my gray hairs in evil to Sheol." It's very likely Joseph, this is the first time he heard what happened after he had been sold into slavery, what they said to his father, that his father thought he was dead. "Now therefore, as soon as I come to your servant my father, and the boy is not with us, then as his life is bound up in the boy's life, as soon as he sees that the boy is not with us, he will die. And your servants will bring down the gray hairs of your servant our father with sorrow to Sheol. For your servant became a pledge of safety for the boy to my father, saying, 'If I do not bring him back to you, then I shall bear the blame before my father all my life. Now therefore, please let your servant remain in the place instead of the boy, as a servant to my lord, and let the boy go back with his brothers. For how can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? I fear to see the evil that would find my father.'" All right. "Take me in Benjamin's place," Judah says. Okay. Notice that, again, that analogy that's here. Guilt was imputed to Benjamin. And Judah steps in, who is the ancestor of the Christ, and says, "Let his guilt become my guilt." So at this point, all they can imagine, I would say, is probably, well, maybe Benjamin actually did it, even though they're shocked by it. But Judah says, it doesn't matter. I'll take his guilt on myself. I will bear his punishment in his place. Then Joseph could not control himself before all those who stood by him. he cried out, "Make everyone go out from me." So no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. Everyone meaning all the court attendants, all of the people that are there with Joseph watching this confrontation. All that remains is Joseph and his brothers. And he wept aloud so that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. And Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed at his presence. They were stunned to silence, probably to fear. The brother whom we sold into slavery and told our father he died, he literally rules the entire land of Egypt. Oh boy. So Joseph said to his brothers, "Come near to me, please." And they came near. And he said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now, do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and ruler over all the land of Egypt." So, what is the odd thing he says there? How could he, a young man, be a father to Pharaoh? Well, first of all, you have to understand that it's pretty much certain that the Pharaoh of the abundance, the 7 years of plenty, is not the same as the Pharaoh of the 7 years of famine, but it was that Pharaoh's son. Joseph very well could be older now at this point than Pharaoh himself. But that doesn't, but you can also simply take it to understand father in a metaphorical sense. That he is the one who has all of the wisdom, and Pharaoh trusts him and defers to him. Okay.
Which would also lead into the fact that it would be the son of the previous Pharaoh.
Possibly. So, which means that he would have been well acquainted with Joseph from his youth, throughout those 7 years. Anyway, we could love to go into all like who is Joseph in Egyptian history and who are the pharaohs and all that kind of stuff, and I think we know, but we don't need to go into that right now. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. He made me a father to Pharaoh and lord of all his house and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me. Do not tarry. You shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, you and your children, and your children's children, and your flocks, your herds, and all that you have. There I will provide for you, for there are yet 5 years of famine to come, so that you and your household and all that you have do not come to poverty. And now your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see, that it is my mouth that speaks to you. You must tell my father of all my honor in Egypt, and all that you have seen. Hurry and bring my father down here.' Then he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. And he kissed all his brothers and wept upon them. After that, his brothers talked with him. When the report was heard in Pharaoh's house, 'Joseph's brothers have come,' it pleased Pharaoh and his servants. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, 'Say to your brothers, do this, load your beasts, and go back to the land of Canaan, and take your father and your households, and come to me, and I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you shall eat the fat of the land. And you, Joseph, are commanded to say, do this, take wagons from the land of Egypt for your little ones, for your wives, and bring your father, and come. Have no concern for your goods, for the best of all the land of Egypt is yours.'" In other words, don't worry about all your other stuff. Just gather your flocks and your families. Here's a bunch of wagons. Come on up. Down. The sons of Israel did so, and Joseph gave them wagons according to the command of Pharaoh, and he gave them provisions for the journey. To each and all of them he gave a change of clothes, but to Benjamin he gave 300 shekels of silver and 5 changes of clothes. To his father he sent as follows: 10 donkeys loaded with the good things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain, bread, and provisions for his father on the journey. They needed a lot more food for a journey than they would if they were just going to have grain and make it. And so he loaded them up with all of this so that they and their entire household, which is far more than just the brothers and Jacob, would be able to come on the journey all together. Then he sent his brothers away, and they departed. And he said to them, "Do not quarrel on the way." So they went up out of Egypt and came to the land of Canaan, to their father Jacob. And he told them, "Joseph is still alive, and he is ruler over all the land of Egypt." And of course, Joseph or Jacob would hear this, and he, of course, assumes his sons are just mocking him. His heart became numb, for he did not believe them. But when they had told him all the words of Joseph which he had said to them, and when he saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. And Israel said, "It is enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive. I will go and see him before I die." All right.
I always was confused with this because Nicky up with a different story where I thought he died there because of the shock of Joseph being alive.
No. He died in Egypt.
I'm wondering what story I was thinking of then.
I don't know what story you were thinking of.
But I was thinking of he died, his head fell off, and he died and fell out of his chair. Out of the shock of something.
Nobody in the Bible died out of shock and had their head fall off while they were sitting in a chair. I don't know what you're thinking of there. The only person that that died of shock while they're sitting in a chair was the priest Eli, who had wicked sons during the time of Samuel. Okay, that's much later on. So Israel took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba, and he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. Okay, so remember, this is a monumental thing that's about to happen here. The land that God gave to Jacob and to his and his descendants forever, his offspring forever, they're going to all leave it now. And they're going to Egypt. So they're going to be in a foreign land and leave the land that God promised to Abraham.
You know, that's actually pretty interesting because you then get a detailed example of how far they actually had to travel once Israel has to travel back.
That's apples and oranges.
Yeah.
Completely different. Completely different. For the simple reason that there was a massive number of Israelites that made the journey from Egypt.
Yeah, that's true.
There's the one family of Jacob. The larger, the slower.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, God did not allow them to simply go straight to Canaan.
That's true.
He took them south. So they cross over top of the Red Sea, and then they head south into the Sinai Peninsula to Mount Sinai. So, yeah. Whereas Jacob's journey is direct, straight there. And there's trade routes. There are trade routes between Canaan and Egypt because trade was a constant thing. Egypt was trading all over the known world, in the Sinai Peninsula, up into the Levant. So that's what they called the Levant was Syria, Jordan, Israel, whole area around it. Okay. So again, as we're saying, they're about to leave the land that God promised to Jacob, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And God spoke to Israel in visions of the night and said, "Jacob, Jacob." And he said, "Here I am." Then he said, "I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you into a great nation. I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up again. And Joseph's hand shall close your eyes." So Joseph will be there when his father dies. Then Jacob set out from Beersheba. The sons of Israel carried Joseph their father, their little ones, and their wives in the wagons that Pharaoh had sent to carry them. They also took their livestock and their goods which they'd gained in the land of Canaan and came into Egypt, Jacob and all his offspring with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters. All his offspring he brought with him into Egypt. At this time, even just his direct descendants, there's a large number of people. Now these are the names of the descendants of Israel who came into Egypt. Jacob and his sons Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and the sons of Reuben, Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. The sons of Simeon, Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman. The sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The sons of Judah, Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. But and Onan died in the land of Canaan. And the sons of Perez and Hezron and Hamul. So he mentions all their children, even though not all of them, some of them had already died. The sons of Issachar, Tola, Puva, Yab, and Shimron. The sons of Zebulun, Sered, Elon, and Jaleel. And the sons of Leah, whom she bore to Jacob, and Paddan Aram together with his daughter Dinah. Altogether his sons and his daughters numbered 33. The sons of Gad, Ziphi and Haggai, Shuni, Ezban, Eri, Arudi, and Areli. The sons of Asher, Imnah, Ishvi, Beriah, and Sarah, their sister. And the sons of Beriah, Heber and Malkiel. And the sons of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to Leah his daughter, and these she bore to Jacob, 16 persons. The sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, Joseph and Benjamin. And to Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On, bore to him. And the sons of Benjamin, Bela, Becher, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Ahi, Rosh, Mupim, Hupim, and Ard. These are the sons of Rachel, who were born to Jacob, 14 persons in all. The son of Dan, Hushim. The son of Naphtali, Jaziel, Guni, Jezer, and Shillem. These are the sons of Bilhah, whom Laban gave to Rachel, his daughter, and these she bore to Jacob, 7 persons in all. So all the persons belonging to Jacob who came into Egypt, who were his own descendants, not including Jacob's sons' wives, were 66 persons in all. And the sons of Joseph who were born to him in Egypt were 2. All the persons of the house of Jacob who came into Egypt were 70. He had sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to show the way before him in Goshen, and they came into the land of Goshen. Then Joseph prepared his chariot, and he went up to meet Israel his father in Goshen. He presented himself to him, and fell on his neck, and wept on his neck a good while. Israel said to Joseph, "Now let me die, since I have seen your face, and know that you are still alive." Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, "I will go up and tell Pharaoh, and will say to him, my brothers and my father's household who are in the land of Canaan have come to me. And the men are shepherds, for they have been keepers of livestock. And they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have. When Pharaoh calls you and says, 'What is your occupation?' you shall say, 'Your servants have been keepers of livestock from our youth even until now, both we and our fathers, in order that you may dwell in the land of Goshen. For every shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians.'" Egyptians did not keep goats or sheep. For whatever reason, they despised those who did. And I'm curious if some of this may have been because at one point in their past, and I get the timelines mixed up, so I may have this backwards, they were subjugated by a foreign people who were called the Shepherd Kings that had taken over the land for a brief period of time. And then we were overthrown, and in Egypt returned to its former rule. But for whatever reason, and this is interesting. So I've been watching a series of reading a book on this period of time that actually notes these details and uses them to help identify where in Egyptian history all this takes place. So you can identify the years of plenty, famine, a powerful vizier, a people that kept sheep, which of course would have been highly unusual that they would be there, and so forth. And it actually does line up to a particular point in time. It's a fairly pat case that we can identify not only which period in Egyptian history that happened, we can actually find Joseph and Ephraim and Manasseh themselves. Literal evidence of them in Egyptian inscriptions. Okay. We will stop there and continue in where we have Jacob settling in Goshen. We have the blessing that Jacob gives finally, and Genesis ends at the death of Jacob.